I reviewed the Tangzu Wan'er quite a while ago, and after revisiting it, I realized why I don't like to rate audio products, because this set of IEMs has a lot more character than I remember it having back in the past. And thank you to the guys at Headphone Zone for making this review possible by sending me this demo unit. All thoughts and opinions are my own. So let's jump straight into how this is built. These come in a beautiful looking box and you get everything you really need in it. You first see a cleaning cloth provided with the same print you get on the box. You get the IEMs, which stand out as if they're jewels, and under it you get an accessory box which holds 6 sets of ear tips, with one already on the IEMs, and you get another box which holds the cable. The ear tips provided are a soft silicone material which are comfortable to wear for longer listening sessions, and the dark ones have a tighter bore compared to the more open bore of the translucent tips. The IEMs have a beautifully finished gold inlay which catches light at certain angles and is sure to get a few eyes checking them out when you're wearing these. The inner housing is transparent, so you can see the hardware within the IEM, much like the original Wan'er, but the main difference here is the royal blue color that takes on the main theme of these IEMs visuals, and the nozzles have a gold plated finish much like the original Wan'er IEMs. The cable provided is terminated to a 0.78mm 2-pin connector at the side where the IEMs connect, and a 3.5mm jack at the other end to connect to your music player or DAC amp. It does have a different finish compared to the previous Wan'er I tested, but what this does have that the previous one didn't is a microphone on the cable. So you can take calls on these IEMs or talk to your gaming buddies, provided you have a DAC amp that has a microphone pass through. Now, I have tested these IEMs with the Hi-Fi Go Link for sound, but that does not have a microphone pass through. I do have the DD Hi-Fi high-res DAC by DD Hi-Fi and Headphone Zone. This does have a microphone pass through. So I have been on the phone's microphone all this time, and I'll shift over to the Tangzu microphone once this plugs in. And this should give you an overall, it's just handed over to the headset. So it should give you an idea as to how this microphone does sound. Now, the microphone is reasonably close, I'd say, to my mouth, but obviously if you do hold it a bit closer, it will change in volume and overall tonality. I'd say it'll most likely be here. So whether you're gaming or even if you're taking calls, this is pretty much how your vocal tonality will carry over to your recipient. So I do hope that this demo has given you a better understanding about these IEMs, and I will see you in the chapter about sound. This comes with 10mm dynamic drivers, has a frequency response of 20 Hz all the way up to 20,000 Hz, and has a very easy to drive low resistance of just 20 ohms. On a volume front, I found myself listening to this most of the time at about maybe 20% volume. It's very comfortable over there, but it does tend to open up a little more when you go higher in volume. Say 30%, it is nice and balanced. It does sound more enthusiastic in the lower frequencies, of course. 35 gets a little too loud for me, so if you intend on preserving your hearing, I wouldn't recommend listening to this above 40% volume over prolonged periods of time. And of course, most audio equipment at lower volumes does tend to thin out a bit. So does this. But even down low at 10%, this does maintain a good amount of roundedness. When it comes to its soundstage, these IEMs perform like most other IEMs in the same price range. Now, it does have a horizontal plane, and the bubble in your head does exist with good left and right separation with a dead center phantom channel. Now, if you do want slightly more expansion, well, this does give you a sense of some tones coming from a little further out, but very rarely. But if you do want a little more expansion, check out the tips provided, because the tighter board tips tend to give you a more restricted stage, whereas when you go over to the larger board ear tips, it does have a little more expansion. And if you are into tip rolling and you do want to try it with the Wan'ers, well, you will have a slight difference in staging, of course, because materials can also make a bit of a difference. On an imaging front, I've always liked how these detail. In fact, I really like these compared to a lot of the newer IEMs out there, because a lot of manufacturers are kind of tweaking the upper mid and the higher frequencies to a certain extent where it gets a little too shrill. It's kind of being done to give you the illusion of slightly more detail, but this doesn't do that. It's not accentuated to an extent where it's going to cut into your ear. It is well detailed, it is well nuanced. In fact, this is the way it should be done. There is no need to give that elevation in the higher frequencies and upper mid range to give the illusion of it. This does give you enough detail when it's when you want to zone in onto certain nuances. So if you do plan on making this your first set of IEMs, moving over from a set of wireless earphones, you are going to be hearing nuances and details that you've not heard before. High frequencies stay clear of being bright, which I always find to be more of a pleasant listening experience. This range isn't tweaked to impress you or think that you're getting sharper detail, which a lot of other manufacturers have been doing lately. I really like that it's as composed as it is in this range. It's easy on the ear while being well defined in its delivery. Crashes of cymbals or shimmers from percussive instruments come through with just the right amount of energy without being aggressive, ensuring longer listening sessions with these IEMs. Listening to the Danish National Symphony Orchestra perform I Will Wait For You, everything from the strings, wind instruments or percussion come through with a nice amount of warmth, which I've come to miss from a lot of new IEMs that are available in the market now. These do have an old school approach to handling this range, and I quite like it. Mid frequencies have an elevation in the upper mids while there is a recess in the lower mids, but it has been tuned carefully so you don't lose much roundedness in the lower mids. Despite this elevation in the upper mid range, I've not experienced any amount of sibilance from these IEMs, and despite that recess in the lower mids, male vocals still have a good fullness to them. Instrument and vocal separation is well spaced in this range as well. Whether you're listening to lighter or heavier genres of music, these drivers don't stutter while handling more information with heavier genres, which some other IEMs can face at times. Listening to Creed perform Who's Got My Back, I was expecting Scott Stapp's voice to thin out considering how this IEM's graph reads out, but his voice comes through with a good amount of energy and doesn't sound nasal at any point in this track. This isn't something every new IEM can do. Lower frequencies do have an elevation compared to the lower mids, and I don't remember this range being as prominent as it is, but it is good fun to listen to. This range has a weight to it I don't remember hearing when I first reviewed this set of IEMs a while ago. I suppose it boils down to how far in or out of your ear canal you decide to seat these. I didn't think this would be able to handle EDM, but it is a fun sounding set to listen to, and this range doesn't interfere with the mids and detail. Something that does help, apart from where these sit in your ear canal, is the ear tip you're using. The tighter board tips tend to carry a tighter bass response over to you, while the open board tips loosen up the bass response. Listening to an old favorite of mine, Café de Flore, performed by Dr. Rocket, this is able to handle sub-low frequencies quite effortlessly, and this low frequency range in general is brought to you with a good sense of enthusiasm. These IEMs have surprised me yet again, despite being an older set, and I can see why so many people still enjoy it. So to sum up, overall on a build front, I really like how they've done this. In fact, the team at Headphone Zone and Tangzu have obviously done a very good execution of this overall design. The way the sort of gold plating highlights on the inside, I like that it has this sort of resin looking like cover. It's like the older one in fact, but the attention to detail I'd say is quite good. I've not really seen anything else that has so much attention to detail. A lot of IEMs now, have a metal plate, and they're not doing this whole sort of hard plastic or resin covering. So it's nice to see the amount of detail that's gone into it. It is nicely done. The cable I do like. Now it is a bit different compared to the original one I did test. That was, I think, a white cable or a silver cable cosmetically, and it was much smoother to the touch. It wasn't sort of rubberized. This one seems kind of rubberized. It does have some sort of grip to it. And the biggest difference, of course, is that this one has a microphone. The previous set that I did review did not have a microphone. So, of course, if you've missed the call chapter to see how the mic sounds, you can head on over to that chapter. I have marked it. When it comes to its sound, highs are not offensive. The mids are well rounded despite having that lower recess, and the low frequencies, well, are a bit sensitive in the sense, depending on where you place these IEMs. If it's further into your ear, there is a lower bass response. If it's further out, the bass is a little more accentuated. So that's one thing to play around with when you do get these IEMs. Now, I've paired this with the iFi Go Link for all of my testing. It's been good fun to listen to. I really like how the iFi Go Link manages to reproduce a lot of its sound. Now you can also pair this with the DD Hi-Fi DAC. I mean, I've not done any rigorous testing with the DD Hi-Fi, but it does sound good with that as well. But my preference has always leaned more towards the iFi. I like how the iFi handles certain IEMs in multiple price ranges. And the thing is, if you are also considering picking up one of these DACs, I do have a comparison between these two. You can check them out. They do have slightly different colorations in their overall sound. So you can check out my comparison if you'd like to. I will leave it down in the description below as well if you don't want to buy one of them. But yeah, overall on a sound front with these IEMs, I didn't remember them being warm sounding. I didn't remember them being as well detailed naturally without an accentuation in the highs and upper mids. I think I found a new love for the Tangzu Wan'ers after revisiting it, and like I mentioned in my intro, this is exactly why I've always stayed away from giving ratings to certain products, because usually when you revisit something, I don't think they've changed any components internally, but my opinion on it, I think has changed over time, because between then and now I've heard so many more IEMs over time, and listening to this again just it makes me appreciate it that much more, because Tangzu's not done what a lot of other manufacturers are doing by tweaking, giving you an illusion of more detail with accentuated trebles. There are a lot of people who have high frequency sensitivities and they can't use a lot of these newer IEMs because of that for over 20 or 30 minutes. This set of IEMs, on the other hand, you can use for hours on end because they've not gone overboard. They're not trying to impress you. It's very comfortable in its own skin. It knows what it's going to do. It's almost like it's enjoying the music along with you. So yeah, overall, I think they've done a great job with the Tangzu Wan'ers. They are much the same, just it's a cosmetic difference. I think this is also a limited edition. So if you do want to make these yours, of course, you can head on over to Headphone Zone. This is a collaboration between Headphone Zone and Tangzu, of course. So if you do want to make these yours, let me quickly tell you the price. Well, speaking of the price, this does have a maximum retail price of about 2,299 rupees, but you can make it yours at the time of recording this video for about 1,790 rupees from Headphone Zone themselves. So I will leave the links down below to all of these, even if you want to buy those DACs, because I mean, pairing those with this set of IEMs will be a nice, good combination. It's worthwhile getting yourself a good DAC as well. If you don't have one, it'll only enhance your listening experience. And overall, is this value for money? Honestly, 1,790 rupees, 1,800 rupees. Considering how this sounds, it's inoffensive and it does a great job. Overall, its build is great. It's been put together well. There are a lot of IEMs that have kind of glue leakages on the sides. I've not seen that on this, so it's nice that they've sort of paid so much attention to detail despite it being a little more affordable. So I hope you found this video helpful and informative, and I do hope that I've helped you make some sort of purchase decision. If you would like to help support the channel, I'm sure you know exactly how to. But of course, thank you for tuning into Paul's POV for some sound advice.